Welcome to CFO Focus Live. I'm Ravi Kumar, partner and national market leader at Connor Group and host of the Breakthrough Work podcast. Connor Group is a specialized advisory firm for ambitious companies navigating the high-stakes inflection points, IPOs, liquidity events, M&A, and finance transformations that separate the companies that break through from those that break down. We've worked on 265 IPOs and with 3,000 plus clients, and we're a firm that's independently owned, which means we answer to one thing: results. Today, we've got three incredible guests, each at a different stage of their CFO journey, each with a story worth sharing. We've got Latha Vairavan, CFO of Arcutis Biotherapeutics, Adam Townsend, former CFO of Vizio, and Chithra Rajagopalan, head of finance at Obsidian Security. Welcome to each of you. Thank you for joining us on CFO Focus Live. I'd love for you each to introduce yourselves and share a little bit about your company, what you do, how many employees you have, and maybe a little bit extra about the company on your commercial journey. Maybe we'll start with you, Latha.
Yeah, thank you for having me. My name is Latha Vairavan. I'm the CFO of Arcutis Biotherapeutics. I'm a new CFO. I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary in about a month. I've been at Arcutis, though, for 6 years. I came to run FP&A, and I came from Amgen, where it's been about 12 years. And when I came to Arcutis, we were a startup. I want to say I was like employee 30, and now we have over 400 employees, and we're a commercial stage company. We have a non-steroidal topical called Zoryve in the market, then two presentations and different formulations of cream and a foam to treat psoriasis, seborrheic dermatitis, and atopic dermatitis. And we're very proud of the journey that we've had in the last 10 years since our inception.
That's wonderful, Latha. We'll get into more of Arcutis' journey shortly. Adam, you want to go next?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ravi. Glad to be here with everybody. As Ravi mentioned, former CFO of Vizio. That came as a result of a sale to Walmart. I joined Vizio about 6 years ago, coming out of traditional media, where I was the CFO of Showtime Networks. Crossing over into the consumer electronics side, really with a focus on how do we expand audiences and drive engagement to drive our ad business that was really in the nascent stages when I joined the company. Took the company public in 21 and ran it as a public company for 4 years before engaging with Walmart. We recently closed the deal about 1.5 years ago with Walmart and spent the last year through that integration journey. And now we'll be out in market as a free agent, having successfully completed my obligations there. So a lot of exciting time for Vizio, great transformation for the company, an incredible exit, and now in the very capable hands of the world's largest retailer in the form of Walmart.
That's awesome. Thanks, Adam. And Chithra, last but certainly not least, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ravi. And thanks again for having me on the show.
Of course.
So I'm Chithra Rajagopalan, head of finance at Obsidian Security. Been with the company for almost 3 years now, and was one of the initial finance hires for the company as well. So I was introduced to the company through Greylock, our lead investor. So I've been with the Greylock portfolio companies for the last couple of my gigs. And prior to that was with similar hyper-growth tech startups doing similar roles where I'm heading everything from FP&A, accounting, tax, all falls under me. And prior to that was with interim CFO services, specifically focused on hyper-growth venture-backed companies, and started my journey with Big Fours. So always been in love with startups and got addicted to the chaos, I guess. Obsidian is a Series C company, and we are focused on SaaS and agentic AI security. So think of anything your third-party enterprise applications, we cover everything. And the same architecture kind of translates back into agents as well that are deployed through your SaaS applications or third-party applications. So that's where the company's focus is. We're around 250-ish employees today, and very much kind of right place at the right time with the right product is how I would explain it. There's definitely a lot of excitement in this segment in general, as you can tell. Cybersecurity is definitely hot right now for the right reasons. That's a little bit about me and the company.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm an advisor to an agentic AI company, and even outside of that, I don't think I can go one conversation without the word agentic AI coming up in it. So right place, right time indeed. All right, let's go back to Latha. As you mentioned, you spent about 12 years at Amgen before joining Arcutis, and I know you started in an FP&A role, but how did that big pharma experience prepare you for your initial role at a commercial stage biotech in FP&A and then your transition to the CFO seat?
Yeah, I would say it's a two-part transition. So first, I enjoyed my time at Amgen, and it was a great learning ground. I'd left consulting to come to do corporate FP&A and to learn more about the biotech space. And I wanted to be in California, and what better place to go than Amgen? And this is all pre-hybrid, pre-COVID. It's a different environment than we're in now. So when I spent that time at Amgen, worked my way up through the ranks, and I was learning how to do commercial FP&A, operations FP&A, and a lot of every aspect of the P&L, but I hadn't been introduced to corporate or R&D. And then when I decided to come to Arcutis, it was pre-COVID, so I thought I don't have to uproot my family. I can get a new experience in a startup environment and build a commercial team and learn more about an R&D stage company and transition to commercial plus the full corporate view of the P&L. And that was what attracted me to come here. Granted, 3 weeks later, we were in COVID, so it was a completely different environment. So at that time, I was taking a role where I was more of a leader into a doer, and I was doing and translating and being the presenter. So I think that was the first transformation of how do you take something, build it, you're kind of like rolling up your sleeves, head down, and then stepping back to up-level the story to the CEO and the board and the CFO at that time. And then the second transformation, I think, happened once we launched and became a commercial stage company, and as we grew. In 2023, Arcutis was in a different space, and I was able to advise to think about what are the strategic options from that point as we grew to where we are now. And that transformation allowed me to see the controllership, frame the IR story, and learn more about the intricacies of the P&L. And that's what I think led to the CFO seat and that transformation. And now I'm in a different transformation of kind of putting away the bread and butter of things that I know is the accounting and the FP&A, and really focused on the external investor hat and what the story that we're framing for Arcutis, where Arcutis is, and where we're headed next.
No, it's that's amazing. And I used to drive past Amgen's office all the time because I had a bunch of clients in Westlake Village and Thousand Oaks and Camarillo when from my days at KPMG. So yeah, that's a great place to build and grow your career. And I'm glad it paved the way for the Arcutis journey. Adam, you took Vizio public in 2021, operated as a public company, and then, a small little retailer named Walmart comes along, and the deal gets announced to acquire Vizio for $2.3 billion. How do you continue to, well, one, walk us through that transaction? Two, how do you continue running a public company with a transaction of that magnitude looming?
Yeah, look, it was a really interesting process. So Vizio being public for that 3 years or so leading up to the engagement, we really understood that it was becoming harder and harder to compete in the marketplace with much larger, much more well-capitalized companies doing a lot of the same things. So we're butting up against the likes of Amazon with the Amazon Fire TVs, with Samsung and what they were trying to do, with Roku and where they were in the US. And it was really clear to us that we needed a partner with someone in a bigger way that had an advantage. Now, the tricky thing about that transaction was that we're negotiating an M&A transaction to be bought by our largest customer, our largest reseller of our TVs. So you can imagine the tension that occurs. There's always natural tension in an M&A transaction, but when you're also negotiating with the person that controls your output in many ways, in terms of your shelf placement, in terms of the promotion, the willingness to support the product and pricing, very interesting dynamic. So the transaction took a long time to navigate. We initially thought maybe we just find a way to work together commercially, and maybe they don't need to take out a full transaction and full ownership. But as we dug into that and to understand the real opportunity and the synergies that this combination would bring, it was really clear that it'd be better off to be fully owned. And so that navigation took about, I'd say, 9 to 12 months to get to the conclusion that they should buy it outright entirely. And then that process took another 8 months to go through diligence, the workflow processes around that, the back and forth, the negotiations, while to your point, and the second part of your question, trying to continue to be a public company. It's the same finance, accounting, controllership, M&A team, legal teams that are trying to be public that are all doing the work behind this transaction. So it was an enormous tax on our team, really I'm thankful that we had the team in place that really rolled up their sleeves and got it done. We then had the joy of being requested for second information from the FTC. And that took it was a 9-month review process to get to the final answer of no answer, with the FTC allowing the transaction by remaining silent at the deadline. And so for all the millions and millions and millions of documents that were submitted on both sides for the government review, the answer was no answer. So the good news is we closed the deal, and that allowed us to sort of move into the next phase and figure out how to work together with Walmart. Trying to fit into the machinery of something the size of Walmart is really extraordinary. It's challenging. There's a lot of different agendas, as you can imagine, a lot of different people with opinions. As large as Vizio thought it was, we did about $2 billion in annual revenue. Walmart does that in about 23 hours. And so you can start to appreciate your significance or insignificance very quickly once you're inside the machinery of a company of that size. So it's been an extraordinary journey. Again, blessed with an incredible team that really sacrificed a lot to get this deal done, but it was the right thing for our shareholders, the right thing for our founder. It gave us an exit that will create the longevity and the ongoing opportunities for Vizio ahead. So pretty excited to be a part of that.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, anytime you have that sort of dual track, you just need to clone everyone so that they can do their day jobs and all the other jobs required, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The one gift that we were given is we decided to stop doing earnings calls during the process. And so you can, those of you that are public, understand all the work that goes into the prep and the lead up to an earnings call. Taking that off our plate was a real gift.
There you go. One side perk, right? Awesome. Well, Chithra, Obsidian just announced the industry's first end-to-end SaaS supply chain security solution and launched AI agent defense. I believe SaaS breaches are up about 300% year over year. And from a finance leader's perspective, how does that threat landscape turn into business opportunity? And tell us a little bit about the company's growth story there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let me take a step back and kind of explain, like, what are people caring about today, right? So if you think about Obsidian's customer base, we have the largest companies in the world from every single vertical. So where we shine the most is F1000, G2000 companies who are working in highly regulated industries. Think about your FinServ, your healthcare, telecom, where there's a lot of restrictions, a lot of regulations. Think about highly sensitive data, high volumes of data. That's where we shine the most. Now, what is the issue or fundamental problem statement here? So now let's all think about our roles as CFOs and finance leaders. At a given point, we are accessing our ERP is connected to the CRM. It's connected to, let's say, a Slack or a Box or whatever that is, right? There are multiple applications that are talking to your core applications, whether it's Workday, whether it's Salesforce, whether it's Oracle, SAP. It is kind of like exchanging data at all times. So a lot of investments that happen in the cybersecurity landscape was always to authenticate the identity. Like, what is Chithra at Obsidian Security logging into? Is she using an MFA? Is it going through an SSO? Is there a zero trust network? So a lot of dollars were investment in that particular space. But what happens after you log in? How is your data? How is that identity moving between applications? Like, what is Slack taking from Salesforce? What is Salesforce taking from somewhere else, or your ERP, right? And as finance leaders, you're accessing all this data all the time. Like, you have access to all the financial data, all the employee data, all the assets of the company at all times, right? So this becomes a lot more important. Like, we have seen so many breaches that have happened. For example, in August, Salesforce got breached because of an integration, right? The Salesforce drift, Gainsight, these were all part of that breach that happened. 700 million records were stolen. And these were all companies like even Palo Alto and Zscalers of the world, right? Not because they didn't have dollars to go protect it. It's just that that's how intricate the architecture is behind the scenes. You cannot just have like a full secure system. And this is not because of Salesforce vulnerability. It's because of the API integration that got hacked through a token compromise. And it was an OAuth token compromise. So that is the reality in which we're living right now. Just because you cannot have the vendor take the entire responsibility of securing all your data. So what is that we are doing is exactly securing that API connection between your two SaaS applications. Now, where it gets weird and scary is that the agents that you're creating on top of these applications are also using the same API integration. And agents are not authenticated today. They're just free flowing based on whoever is in your team as able to create any autonomous agents that are either running in your device or is using an enterprise application, go access whatever they want, right? And most of the time, compared to me, an agent I create could be over provisioned. And we are seeing this a lot more because you have this pressure from the company and top down. You need to go fast. You need to get everything into agenting. No more hiring. Everybody becomes an agent, right? So there's obviously that pressure that you go through, and security is always an aftermath. So this is where that disconnect is. So what are you doing as a CFO or the finance leader of the company? How are you empowering your team, the rest of the organization, to be able to have the right conversation? Hey, if I do this, is my data protected? Hold each other accountable, have the right conversations with the IT GRC team while you're procuring any tools or even authenticating or even integrating, right? So I think that's where the responsibility has shifted quite a bit. So this is in kind of like a nutshell, like what we're seeing. And the agentic era that we are in right now is kind of out of control, right? There's so much going on. There's no way you're able to even comprehend what is happening on the back end. You could even have your employees kind of like go through and, hey, I'm going to try all these 5 different AI applications. I'm going to connect it to a million different things and see what happens, because everybody's in that creative mindset right now. And sometimes as CFOs, we don't even see it unless it pops up in an expense report or, oh yeah, I just used a company card because it was a free application, right? Or so there is a lot more shadow IT, shadow AI element to this as well, because of the pressure that people feel that I need to adopt more AI into the equation. So hopefully, as finance leaders, we feel more empowered to ask the right questions and help not be a blocker to creativity, but let's route it in the more secure, responsible way where our core assets of the company are still protected.
No, thank you for that overview. I think that's super helpful. And I'm glad you brought up that point about provisioning of AI agents, because even sometimes when they run into a bottleneck, sometimes they're programmed to find workarounds. And so, provisioning of AI agents can also be fairly complex.
Absolutely. And I think there are a lot of companies out there that are just using an inventory, like, okay, I'm able to see what's going on from one side of the equation, but not so much on the SaaS side, right? Because the enterprise application is where all the agents are created in the first place. You need to see both sides of the coin to know what the vulnerability is.
No, that's great. Latha, let's go back to you and let's talk about the numbers at Arcutis. You just reported Q4 2025 revenue of 129.5 million, a staggering 84% growth year over year, and you've guided to almost $500 million in revenue for 2026. Walk us through that growth story. You know, what's working and how has that been received in terms of such exceptional year-over-year growth?
Yeah, 2025 has been a transformative year. I think we launched our first product in August of 22, and since then we've just been in launch mode. So Zoryve is a pipeline and a product, and we've been launching from a cream for psoriasis, then we had the foam for seborrheic dermatitis. We added another cream for atopic dermatitis. Then we expanded the foam's indication for scalp and body psoriasis, and then we've finally got approval for a cream for atopic dermatitis for 2 to 5-year-olds, and now we're eagerly waiting responses, readouts from our infant study, and for bringing the age down for treating psoriasis. So Zoryve has been now, kind of had this portfolio effect in the clinician space in dermatology to be able to think of as the treatment for immune-mediated skin diseases. So we're very proud of the achievements from starting out our preliminary earnings in the 2 million range to grow to put out a quarter of $129 million in Q4. And this is the first year that we've given guidance, the first time. I'm sure Adam can relate to as you go through the earnings cycle, and it becomes what questions are you answering? So we had an investor day at the end of October where we reaffirmed the strategy for Arcutis and what the outlook is for ZORYVE and our pipeline, and use that as a base to affirm our peak sales. And that's when we put out guidance, and we increased that guidance in the Q4 earnings call. So and though it's shy of $500 million, I want to be clear, we put out a range of $480 to $495 million of guidance. So it is the step up of really inflecting our growth and showing the potential of ZORYVE. And another thing that we committed to is being cash flow positive. So we're very in a unique position that we don't have to go to the market to raise money. ZORYVE is self-sustaining, and we're investing ZORYVE's growth into ZORYVE to continue to inflect our growth trajectory. So we're very excited. It's kind of a shift from that commercial stage where the CFO's goal is about raising money, and we had a lot of those years, and now it's all about taking the leverage and investing it to grow Arcutis.
Well, I deal with a lot of biotechs that are preclinical, so talking about biotechs and revenue is always fun. So
yes.
No, that's exciting, and congratulations on the success, and seems like also a very bright future for the pipeline and expanding into pediatrics. So congratulations there.
Thank you.
Adam, we oftentimes like to also talk about the mentoring and the growth trajectory of CFOs. There's typically two archetypes of the CFO. I call it the operating CFO that maybe goes up through the controller, chief accounting officer channels, and then you have more of the FP&A, corp finance, corp dev, journey. Clearly, you're in the latter camp. When you first stepped into the CFO seat, going through the investment banking FP&A route, did you have any blind spots in that CFO role? And if you did, how did you address them?
Yeah, I think, coming up through the equity research side, I was at JP Morgan as an equity research analyst earlier in my career. You don't really have the day-to-day knowledge base of the key accounting, the controllership, the process of closing the books. That whole entire thing is a blind spot as a former analyst coming in. Analysts will bring in a lot more alignment to FP&A, I would say, because you're more looking at what are the key drivers of the business, what are the KPIs, what are the metrics, what are the levers that need to be pulled to understand the intricacies of the output, but not really the plumbing behind the scenes. And so for me, it was really, as I stepped into a CFO role, it was really to surround myself with strong accounting team, strong controller, to really give me that support, and then sit back into the role of more of a strategic lens and think about how to run the organization from that strategic perspective. Help the organization understand how does finance and accounting empower and enable the decision-making of the business to really help propel the organization. That's really the expertise that sort of I brought in and create that culture. But it's critically important to be surrounded by the core competency of the accounting organization, the controllership team, because that's really what's going to save you at the end of the day when it gets challenging. So that was a blind spot coming in. Had to learn how to navigate that and how to support the overall org. It was great. I mean, obviously, being at Showtime, it was an opportunity. I stepped into a wholly owned subsidiary CFO role in a company I'd already been at for 10 years. And so in terms of knowing people, knowing how to get things done, knowing who to contact for help, all that infrastructure was in place, which helped set me up for success. And then jumping out of Showtime and into Vizio as in the true new company CFO role, new challenges of learning how the organization works, how it functions, how decisions get made. And Vizio was at a point where it was about to go through the transformation of the IPO, as we talked about. And that IPO readiness process required a real evaluation of the team. And did we have the right support people in the right areas? Was the team strong enough to get to that next level of being a public company? And we found that in some cases we did have that. In other places we had to make some changes and some replacements and bring in some outsiders. And so there was a rebuild process alongside of IPO readiness to launch into ultimately a transaction. So a lot on the plate of a CFO coming into an organization that was 18 years old at that point. It was an 18-year-old private company still, founder-led, founder-started and controlled. And so to be able to sort of navigate that as they were transitioning from a hardware company to a hardware plus a software with a new ad model around that, new revenue sources, and trying to go public. A lot of transformation at once.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember, I think buying my first Vizio in college, and that was well before the IPO. So no, it was definitely around for a while. And I'm glad you talked about the different work streams and the public company readiness assessments. Oftentimes that's such a great exercise to understand. I put it into two buckets. There's the capacity side, which is just sheer people that you need to get the job done, but then also just the capabilities, right? Where are the gaps? Where are the needs to address those swim lanes in taking a company public? The people, process, system side, the actual registration statement, the historical accounting, and then obviously the current accounting of keeping the lights on. So no, I'm glad you guys navigated that well, and have a success story, not only with your first liquidity event of going public, but the second one of exiting to Walmart. Chithra, kind of coming back to you and keeping along the same lines of that career arc. We both started our public accounting careers at the Big Four. We each spent some time at EY. How did that foundation shape the way that you think about finance leadership today, especially in the high-paced world of being a quote unquote startup and venture-backed company?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really truly appreciate people who come from the consulting background, just because it gives you a very unique ability to context switch quite fast. And when you're working with different kind of leaders, when you're working with different kind of industries and problem statements, it gives you a vast perspective of different approaches that you can take, or how you apply certain kind of judgment in different scenarios. So I think that has given a very, very good foundation. Now, why does it translate back into startups? Because nobody has time. You're like running 1,000,000 miles per hour while making high impact decisions every single day. And it's immediately you get the feedback, whether it's working or not, right? So how do you take that back and iterate? A simple example would be data, like being really appreciative of underlying data that you have that drives into business insights. So even if you look at the example right now, the market is shifting so much, like technology and buy or kind of like make or buy decision, right? That all of that is kind of changed quite a bit. Like how you think about the competitive landscape has changed quite a bit. Like the market has going through a lot of fluctuations. Now, the best thing you can do is to be able to really understand what is that the market is signaling, what are the insights you're able to get from your customers, what is that your product is able to really give you value on, like what is the network, what is the internal core strengths that you have. All of that comes through like through a data, a clean way of understanding, capturing those data. So I think having similar foundations is something that I've learned and started appreciating quite a bit. And when you're in startup, usually some of this becomes aftermath, right? Like you're not thinking about foundation quite a bit. You're like trying to go. Like there's a lot of emphasis on R&D. There's a lot of emphasis on S&M, but G&A becomes a little bit of an aftermath at that point, right? But how do you kind of at the what stage, and what is the right stage at which you need to think about these things? So then it becomes a foundation where you can really catapult that growth for the company and scale in the right way. So I think these are some of the things that I always have kind of like extracted from my past.
Awesome. Yeah, no, we oftentimes talk about, the experience that we had when we were in public accounting, and now you have the world of AI and shared service centers and outsource and specialty practices. And so, you're that dual thread of public accounting plus industry experience, and, really leveraging that, think on your feet and understand and diagnose situations, incredibly quickly. I think we are at our regularly allotted time. We'll maybe pause to, wait and open up the Q&A segment shortly. But this was so enriching that we used up all of our regular time. And now we'll maybe turn it to the audience for some Q&A. All right. Well, we do have a question from the audience. The first question is, for each of you to share something about yourselves that, no one would know from looking at your bios or your LinkedIn profiles. So maybe Latha, we'll start with you.
It's a little bit of my go-to answer, but every time I say it, people are shocked, is that I love to gamble. I'm a big blackjack player. So it's a good thing. Nice. It's a good thing that I don't live in Vegas. But in my consulting days, there was a project that was in Vegas, and I learned, and I'm a big fan. So I like to play the tables.
All right. Well, if I ever need a high roller suite, I know who to contact. All right, Adam.
So some people know this. I've talked to a lot of people about this, but many of you probably don't think that I was pre-med in college. I was actually a biology major. And this whole finance thing came as a passion coming out of undergrad, and working my way into the Wall Street side, as we already talked about. The common link I think that I always pull from is that they're both incredibly analytically driven, data detail oriented, and so that common DNA, to use a biology term, really pulled it together. But for me, and for anyone listening that thinks about passion and career pathing, whenever you are pursuing something that you have greater passion in, you're going to commit more time to it. You're going to dig in deeper. You're going to enjoy it a lot more. And that was really true for me in terms of my path, coming out of thinking I wanted to be a physician, and now a public company CFO.
Well, that's awesome. I always say I'm not a scientist, but every now and then I like to play one on TV. So no, that's a fun fact. All right, Chithra, you want to bring us home on this one?
I don't think a lot of people know this, but I do paint. I think that's my escape from reality exercise. But yes, that's a little fun fact about me.
All right, you're not Banksy, are you? All right, one more question, and I think we're at our allotted time. So we have a lot of future and aspiring CFOs or corporate controllers or heads of FP&A that are looking to one day sit in the CFO seat. For each of you, what's one bit of advice you'd give to our listeners in terms of how they can better prepare for one day sitting in your seats? Latha, we'll start again with you.
I think for me, it's really two pieces. The first one is there's an opportunity presents itself, and you always wonder, is that really the right one, or is that going to do something for me? And I think you'd be surprised when you say yes on what that teaches you or the door that it opens. So for me, it's a lot about been saying yes to things that people would have, in hindsight, thought was that really the path to CFO? And I think the answer is yes, even though at that time it didn't seem. So I'd say don't knock an opportunity. You'd be surprised what it has to offer you. And then the second one is sometimes an opportunity presents itself and it's the path to CFO, then you become your own barrier of imposter of whether you can or can't do it. So on that angle, don't knock it either. Be surprised what you can offer. And I say that because when I was offered his job, as Adam said, as he's coming through the sort of the sell side and the research angle, that was something that was new, and I was very hesitant whether I could handle that room or be ready. And I think, and when I took that IR role, I kind of asked, take a gamble, like I'll prove that I can kind of learn and talk that talk and be in that room. So don't sell yourself short of what you can and can't do. You'd be surprised on your full capacity and surprised on what doors can open.
I love that. Adam?
Yeah, I'd say similarly two kind of different dynamics. I think one, always try to continue to be hungry and humble. I mean, I think those two things together really helps open doors. It helps you ask the right questions. It helps you roll up your sleeves and get involved. Back to the earlier point of things you don't expect necessarily, that you put yourself in a position for growth, learning, and opportunities. And I think that's really a great playbook. The other piece is, I'd say, constantly be thinking about opportunity sets and not necessarily getting yourself pigeonholed. Be mindful of being pigeonholed into a task-oriented role or something where there's not a lot of mobility. I think is really a critical piece. I think people get very tied into doing something a certain way in a role that they are in, but they don't understand that there's not a path out of that. And I think aligning yourself with strategic routes, thinking higher level, more strategic and less transactional, can serve you well if you want to get into a broader senior leadership role.
No, I love that. Oftentimes, people see that when they're trying to go for a position, the position is looking for someone with public company CFO experience or someone with IR experience. But if they never get those opportunities, how are they ever going to, be qualified with some of those prerequisites? So I like that of expanding your skill sets while in your current roles, such that you're ready for those future opportunities. So Chithra, we'll let you bring us home.
Yes. So for me, I think it's always be in tune with the business, right? Like really have an understanding on how the pieces move and really have an insight on that. And I think for me also, like I don't have a technical background and I've been in companies that are very tech heavy. So I'm never afraid to ask questions. I'm not technical, so I always, I'm always curious. I always sit in there as a student, surrounded by people who are more intelligent than me and learning from them. As a finance leader, I think it's very important to know how the pulse is for the business so that you can actually show up as a business partner. And I think that's very valuable, having that curiosity. I think, Adam, you mentioned that as well, right? So really be a student and really be humble during the processes. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Even you're not a technical person, really, that'll really open up more understanding and insight towards how the business is flowing and make you a better partner to the rest of the executives.
No, I love that. On one of the episodes of my podcast, the CFO actually said, take interest in other aspects of the business. Don't just, focus on your own little area, because then sometimes you miss the big picture. And as us as finance leaders, we need to know that we are G&A and the tail doesn't wag the dog. So I think that's sage advice, Chithra. So thank you. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end of our time. I want to take one final moment to thank you, Latha, Adam, and Chithra, for sharing your experiences, sharing a little bit about your companies, and providing these great insights to our audience. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Connor Group is built differently. We're a leading professional services firm with a rare blend of boutique size and legendary experience. Our partners roll up their sleeves and work directly on engagements. The majority of our team comes with real-world, hands-on industry experience, and unlike other firms, we're independently owned. We never cut corners or compromise on quality. With customized solutions for AI automation, technology implementation, accounting advisory, financial close and reporting, transformation and risk, M&A transaction services, and IPO services, we help ambitious companies break through the barriers that get in their way.
Great entertainment shouldn't be hard to find. The Vizio home screen brings all your favorites together in one place. Stream free movies and shows with WatchFree Plus, and find where your game is playing with Vizio Sports Zone. Discover entertainment from hundreds of apps and keep your favorites right at your fingertips. Explore curated content organized by your interests and create your own entertainment lineup with My Watch List. The Vizio home screen, your gateway to entertainment.